Que lo que, mi gente? Welcome to the Monoplaza F1 podcast. As always, I'm your host, Emir Tre, and with me is my all-time favorite guest, joining me once again, very graciously, the Honorable Elkyn Beltry. Hey, man, how you doing?
Doing pretty good here. Had a busy weekend, but we back, ready to go, cover another
Hey,
race.
but we ride. Let's go.
Absolutely.
Uh, we have got a lot to go over, so I'm not, buckle in. I might actually have to add chapters to this so people can skip around. Hey, shouts out, honestly, the whole chapters idea. Shouts out to Chris and Tasha, Nasha, Tandy, two separate podcasts, formerly one podcast. It doesn't matter. Anyways, for showing me the ways of the chapters. But I digress. All right, man. Before we get super into it, I guess we'll talk about quality. We'll talk about all the teams, all their strategies, all the teams except for Sauber and Aston Martin. So if you're a Sauber and Aston Martin fan, go ahead and yeah, I got nothing for you, but go ahead and leave a like. All right, it's free. So yeah, let's start there. Overall, Elkin, what were your impressions of the Bahrain GP, the race weekend overall? Obviously, we're coming off of the excitement of Suzuka. Yes, sarcasm, but yeah, what was your what was your impression?
It was a nice, what is the term? Really bad with these idioms. What do we call it? Idioms, whatever. Something of fresh air, breath of fresh air, blah, 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 all that
Oh
stuff.
yeah.
But it was nice. That's all I can say. I was just like, let me keep up with this stuff. Qualifying was decent. I was like, oh my goodness. Even honestly, like last week's qualifying wasn't bad. I know like it was the whole thing
Mm,
with Max
sure.
getting pulled, but then GP, pure cinema. I loved it. I was like, I know eventually, like we know Oscar ran away with it, but overall, it
Yeah.
was the watch was a lot more worthwhile. It didn't feel
100%.
like we're gonna get Monaco
100%.
3.0 because last weekend felt like we got Monaco 2.0, and I was like, please don't be 3.0. I was like, please let's make something happen.
Uh,
And let me tell you, it did, and I liked it.
yeah, I think I'm gonna agree with you on that. Yes, obviously qualifying last week really obviously determined the winner of the race. You had Max pulling one out. Um, in fairness, that weekend that car was not like the slowest car. It wasn't the fastest. It was McLaren, and McLaren continues to have the best car. So yeah, that was probably the most exciting thing that happened last weekend was Max getting pole. All right, done and dusted. This weekend, I was 100% expecting a good race. It was going to be the first night race. Corny stat that they kept like bringing up, I'm sure you saw it, is that like the tarmac or the asphalt at the Bahrain International Circuit is older than Ali Bearman and Andrea Antonelli. So okay, cool. I don't know how many times they showed that
They
stupid
showed
stat,
it
but I was
so
like,
many times. I was
yes,
like, yes, we get it. Oh
we get
03,
it.
2003.
We get
Understandable.
it. Keep it pushing, dog. Y'all pull something else out of your bag. But but I knew it was gonna be a good race because this is, I mean, you know this. It's the testing track,
Hmm.
right? And it's a track where you can overtake. And so I was like, I know qualifying is going to be important, but it is not going to be as important. Obviously, I was kind of, I don't know, I was wrong, but I was right, but I was wrong. Anyways, so yes, great race overall. Saw some great overtakes. Saw a random safety car for what I thought was like the dumbest reason, like a full safety car. I didn't think it was dumb that they had a safety car. I just thought it was dumb that they had a full
Yeah.
safety car, not a virtual safety car. Felt a little for some little like pieces of trash, little basuritas on the track, courtesy of Yuki Tsunoda. But yes, overall it was a really exciting race for me. Super excited that Oscar won. Definitely making his case for McLaren to pay attention to him. I think last week I mentioned on my episode, and I think I mentioned to you in the past, like Oscar, the only thing he needed to do was get his qualifying buttoned up, and basically he'd be able to make his case
Hmm.
strong for McLaren. As it stands today, he sits 3 points behind Lando Norris. So even if we're not going to get a multi-team WDC or constructors battle, we can at least get a inner team battle.
Hmm.
Although I don't know, man, Oscar, he seems so confident. I think if he wins like the next two races or something, that's a wrap. He's running away with it.
Yeah.
I don't think emotionally there would be a recovery from Lando unless something happened over summer break. But
But we'll see. I mean, they could just keep going back and forth. My worst fear is that they go back and forth. I won't say my worst fear. And then like you have someone like Russell or like Max
yes,
just
sir.
sneak in there, and I'm just like, oh man.
George Russell, WDC World Driver Champion, just was there. You know, in DR, I have to explain this to you off air, but in DR they call George Russell Salami, uh, because it's just there, right?
Hmm.
It's like you need it, it's there. It's just like he wasn't really doing much during the race, but there he is at the end. Salami. I'll have to figure that out, explain that to you better. So, let's dive in real quick. While we're on the topic of George Russell, let's talk about qualifying. What do you think about uh, qualifying? Anything stand out to
It's
you?
just, obviously, like you brought up George Russell. I mean, that man's just consistent in qualifying. Like
Mm.
he's one of the quickest at qualifying, and I think we saw that when he made that move. Well, going back a few years, going from Williams to Mercedes, you
Oh yeah.
kind of saw that eventually. Like he just has a really quick, and I think eventually, like you and I talked about it, like people would bring it up as like a topic, like, oh, Hamilton, he can now qualify by his teammate. And like I'll say this, like as much as we say like Hamilton, like we're both, I mean, are big Hamilton fans, but like realistically
Mhm.
speaking, we know a guy who's in his 40s, barely 40, is not going to have like that same reaction compared to a guy in their 20s, mid to late 20s. And like in qualifying, that difference from getting pole position to getting 10th, being 10th in that position, a lot of
Mhm.
times we're talking about like what, less than a second.
Yes.
And so I'm just like, you got to have like just all it takes is like one little mistake or being slower, just like a hundredth of a second, and you already lost like your position. So that's the thing. He's just been so good, and I think I want to say, because we know you and I said like he's ended up on podium 3 out of 4 races. I
Yep.
want to say he's
Three
had
out
a
of the
good.
four races.
Has
Yes.
he hasn't gotten pole this year yet though, right? Or has he?
No.
I don't think he's gotten pole
No,
yet.
because Australia was Lando,
Yeah,
China was Oscar,
Japan
and
was Max,
Suzuka was
and
Max,
then
and then
Oscar
Oscar
again.
again.
Like
Yeah,
I
yeah,
wouldn't be
yeah.
surprised if
He's gotten close
he's gonna
though.
get. I think he's gonna get pole pretty soon. Like it's only a matter of time. And I think so far with that, it's been great. I think what was more surprising, you and I like we're talking about it, like is Oscar's teammate Lando. But you know, like before I go over to McLaren, I would be interested to see if Kimi
Mm.
Antonelli, how his qualifying is improved, because he's been slowly, like he's been there. He
Yes.
hasn't been horrible. He's
Yes.
been
No,
there.
he is
So
not.
I'm curious to see. It's just
Yes.
I think for me is this, I don't know, this could be my naivety when it comes to Formula One. Part of me thinks he's just not as comfortable with the tracks like the other drivers. Like he's still like some of the other drivers know these tracks well, but at the same time, just like it could just be he's also figuring out the car. Like it's literally his fourth race of the season,
I
and he's still figuring out things.
So I would say yes with a caveat.
Hmm.
So I guess I'm going to touch on a couple of points, right? I'm a Lewis Hamilton apologist. You are a Lewis Hamilton apologist. I'm not going to make any. And by the way, for those who don't know, apologist means a staunch defender, right?
Absolutely.
So I make right. Uh, let's go back a little bit. Yes, in the overall head-to-head between Lewis and George, if you take the sum of their 3 years as teammates together, I think Lewis barely like beat him in
Yeah.
points, right? Cool. In terms of qualifying, you go back to 2022, which was the first season of these regulations. That car was a dud. All the experiments that Lewis was uh, performing for the team on that car, because his feedback was so crucial. You have the 7-time world driver champion, so of course you want his feedback, right? But of course, that year George Russell was the only one who got a win for Mercedes.
Hmm.
In 2023, it was a winless season. Um, George out qualified Lewis, but Lewis dragged a W14 to a P3,
Hmm.
right? Last year was, to me, business as usual for a team that is letting go of a driver, right? All of the setups and all of that stuff benefited George Russell. The head to head in races, George finished ahead of Lewis. Great. He got 2 wins. Lewis got 2 wins. Awesome. Right. Um, what I will say is that I'll give George his flowers. He's very consistent. He's very good at that one lap pace, and I think his overall racecraft obviously has improved. But like, I don't know, man. Like when you get to an actual race, right? Besides Vegas and maybe Spa last year, or was not Spa, Belgium last year,
Hmm.
when he was disqualified, like, and maybe I guess Brazil, like most, like three out of his four race wins, he's done well, and one of them was very like opportunistic, right? So I don't know. But anyways, I don't want to go down the George Russell rabbit hole. He qualified P2, then obviously he got a grid penalty, and so he got pushed down to three,
Hmm.
which promoted like Charles Leclerc. I guess the last thing I'll say about Kimi Antonelli, he did have a ton of time in the car to get acclimated to. I think if anything, what's happening with Kimi is he's getting acclimated to a car that's that fast.
Mm.
Yeah, because the tracks, he's not familiar with all of them, but he is familiar with some of them just because he was in F2 and he did Freca and F4 and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So, anyways, so let's move on to McLaren during qualifying. What were you gonna say about Lando?
No, I mean, I think my only thing with Lando is because obviously, like Lando's good with qualifying, but I think you and I
Sure.
had often talked if Oscar can figure out his qualifying,
Yep.
that might be the two pieces. Because people have often said Lando is not horrible; he's a great qualifier. But there's something about
Sure.
Oscar's race pace and the way he handles himself on the track that's like if he puts two and two together, he's gonna be very hard to catch. And I think like you kind of just saw it in that qualifying, how things worked out. Like Oscar did what he needed to do in qualifying,
Mm-hmm.
and then Lando. I mean, you kind of heard Lando. I mean, I I felt kind of I didn't like Lando's comments when he's like, I feel like I don't know how to drive this car, like afterwards,
Sure.
and I'm just like,
Sure. I mean, but that's Lando though, right? He's
yeah,
very like self-deprecating,
hmm.
and not to like say that him and Lewis are the same, but like I guess what's the line between like being accountable and being self-deprecating?
Sometimes I think both like there's times where Lewis says stuff. I'm just like, oh my goodness. Like our literal thing was, we talked about Lewis's little thing. It's like, Lewis, what do you want to tell the fans who are waiting for that magic to return? And he's like, don't.
Don't.
And I'm just like,
Hey,
yeah.
hey, I ride with, but that's realism.
Hmm.
I will say like, so statistically, right, and just on the fact that Lando has been in Formula One longer than Oscar, like
Hmm.
on paper, Lando is the better
Yeah.
driver, right, on paper. But I think probably the reason me and you like Oscar so much is because of the intangibles,
Hmm.
right? Oscar doesn't seem to make a lot of the same mental mistakes maybe that Lando does, right? I mean, I say that, and we're off the heels of Australia where he lost control to the car
Yeah.
and then finished the race like super low, right? Probably because he was super agitated and trying to go after Lando. But I think that's for me like what makes a difference when I feel or when I look at Oscar. And by the way, like I love Oscar. I love Oscar Piastri. All right, but man, Oscar Piastri race wins are so underwhelming, dog. It's like,
Man.
hey, Oscar, that's P1. He's like, yeah, all
All
right,
right.
we did
All
it.
right. Good. Good job, everyone. Let's head on home.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, job well done. I was like, dang, dog. So yeah, with the qualifying, obviously Lando's mistakes cost him.
Hmm.
Would you say that that's what ultimately cost Lando the race was like that poor qualifying? And that's what I'm saying. Like
Like,
qualifying here wasn't as important, but clearly in that McLaren it is important.
yeah. And I mean, and one thing, like, and I know we're going to get to the race and talk about it, but like, he just couldn't get past Russell. Like, eventually in that McLaren, he got past the Ferraris, but
Mm-hmm.
he got close to Russell a few times, just couldn't
Sure.
complete it. But
I mean,
if he would have started like P2,
yeah,
that would have been a different story probably.
that would have been a George Russell P3. Take it to the bank, baby.
Or
That's
George Russell waiting for those two guys, the McLarens, to
to
crash into each
crash
other,
into
and
each
then him
other.
just
Yep.
swooping in.
Chilling. Yeah. Or for like not Ferrari, McLaren would have like pitted the wrong
Oh
guy
my
or
goodness.
some crap like that. I
But
don't even know.
how'd you feel?
Oh, what?
No, I was gonna tell you like how'd you feel about Ferrari's qualifying? Because I know, um,
So,
I want to hear your
what were you
thoughts.
saying?
I want to hear your thoughts first before I say my piece.
So my thing with Ferrari is this, right? They are the 2025 Aura champions of F1.
Absolutely.
Hey, they are bar. They are setting the standard for Instagram posts,
Hmm.
for videos, for reels. I love everything that they're putting out. Like the quality, amazing. They got those two good looking models like doing all that stuff. It's like Blue Steel. What was that? You remember what was that movie with Ben
Zoolander,
Stiller?
baby.
Zoolander. It
Yeah.
got the whole Zoolander
You got
vibes
Ben
over at
Stiller and Owen Wilson
yes, yeah,
just
just
going band for band when it comes to the looks with Charles
exactly.
and Lewis.
Exactly. They got these two pretty dudes doing the most. Aura Champions 2020. I just need that to translate. All right. And so for me, I'm calling it I think I was talking to you. It's like the non controversy controversy.
Hmm.
The thing that had me hot was this. So obviously Charles qualified P3.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Hmm.
Charles is a great qualifier. Charles is a great
Hmm.
qualifier. Lewis qualified P9.
Ooh.
Um, the last couple of years at Mercedes had taught me something about this, right? You have Lewis, who in Q1 of qualifying will be like P1, P2.
Yep.
Q2, he'll be like P1,
Yep.
P2 again. And then Q3,
Here we go.
something happens
And that's the end of
down,
it. And he ends up.
right? In this instance, I don't know how many times, and this is why I say it's like the non controversy. I don't know how many times Lewis Hamilton has to say, I am still learning this car.
Hmm.
I'm still adjusting to it. I have 16 plus years of muscle memory of driving a certain style, of braking a certain style, of
Hmm.
turning, all of this stuff. And people are just like, they need to figure out, they need to pick a lane. All right. They need to either, Lewis is only great because of the car and stick to that, or Lewis is great because his literal intangible skills, right?
Hmm.
And so he is not infallible. He is human. Okay. And yes, the age, sure, the age is a factor, but I don't think it's actually that big of a factor. His race reaction, his race starts are still pretty fast. His pace is still
Hmm.
really good. To me, it's literally just
His.
he's not confident. He's not confident with the car.
Yeah,
He's still learning. This is
absolutely.
only four
And
races.
that's why I'm just like I'm not rushing it. Like I literally saw an article right before the race where it's like the honeymoon is officially over between Lewis and Ferrari, and I'm like,
Okay.
oh my gosh. I'm like, I'm pretty sure this race calendar is fresh. We are
Dog.
we are just beginning, and with the qualifying,
We've
I will
only
say like there
just
are times I'm just like he
begun.
does need to clean up his qualifying.
But he says that.
Yeah,
But he says
he
that.
knows it. That's the thing. He knows it because I think you and I talked about it. And by the way, for people who are watching this or listening to it, I did text Emmy beforehand, and he was like P10 coming up right here. He before qualifying, and he
hey, hey, we speak and we don't judge.
yeah,
Like I love Lewis Hamilton,
but we
but
do.
I'm real. So here's the thing, right? Like several of the content creators podcasts that I listened to, there was one that was like very poignant, right? And that is Quick Stop,
Hmm.
right? Is one of my favorite ones. And Nashville was on there talking about Lewis Hamilton fans need to also pick a lane. Like what are we wanting from Lewis Hamilton? And I think part of the reason he was saying that is to like tailor
Hmm.
expectations, right? Like, are we just happy because hey, he's at Ferrari now and he's getting the treatment he deserves? Are we like he's still in a competitive car? Are we like, hey, this year let's just give him a year to get used to it. 2026, we got new regs, everybody starts from scratch, right? Like for me, I'm playing the patience game. Like Charles out qualified him. It's 3-1 now.
Hmm.
Okay. Awesome. Great. Charles has been with the team for 7 years. So to put a cap on that, I thought that like again, shouts out to Charles for qualifying, but like the thing that had me like hot was just like everybody just piling on him, and he is his worst critic.
Hmm.
He's people who are great are the worst critics, but like the cherry on top that would eventually just like end up blowing up in their faces was like I think it was like the Auto Sport graphic that came out because Carlos Sainz ended up out qualifying Lewis, and they're like, Carlos Sainz, it's personal for him. No, dog, his contract was up. They didn't renew it. Carlos Sainz got his first point with Williams the same way that Logan Sargent got his first point with Williams. Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton double disqualification. Okay, Ferrari knows what they're doing,
Hmm.
and you know what? Carlos is over there being a race strategist, and he did not finish the race. All right, that's it. Let me not
I
get
think.
pressed about
I
this. Not
think you're
that
ready
deep.
for the race. That's what's going on here. I think qualifying. We are. Hey, but shouts out for qualifying though. Before we go on to talk about the race,
Mm.
Yuki Tsunoda making it to
Oh
Q3.
yes, let's
Our
go, La
boy,
Yuquito. One time,
he did
yes
it.
sir.
Let's give him a shout out because
Shouts out
we
Yuki.
had also
Oh
seen
man,
like first it was Liam Lawson and how things started, and then Yuki's first quali in the Red Bull. See, people were like, "Oh, same thing. Look at this. Liam Lawson out qualified him." See, I almost feel like
oh
same
yeah,
thing. With like Lewis is like, "Oh, you see." And then Yuki got back in, and he's like, "All right, y'all, watch this. Watch this. Y'all got
watch me
jokes.
work. Yeah.
Watch me do my thing."
Hey, but no, shouts out. Honestly, I will say though, for a team of Red Bulls caliber, do with this information, take it to the bank. It's kind of sad that this is the first time their second driver gets into Q3 in a minute.
Hmm. It's been a
But
while.
hey, shouts out Yuki. Hey, we ride. Yeah, okay, so the race. So I thought the race was super exciting. You agree the race was super exciting.
Hmm.
Right off the jump, Lando had a false start. Also, ultimately, like it didn't matter. He got a 5 second
Hmm.
penalty for it. It didn't matter because like he got a great jump. So he went from was it fifth? Let's see,
No, he
what's
was
the
six, and then he ended
yeah,
up, I
yeah, yeah,
think, to
you're right.
three.
Yep. So he jumped people, and that was not that false start. Honestly, it wouldn't have made a
Hmm.
difference. To be completely honest, like he would have been fine regardless. All right. What is funny about that is like I keep saying that these all these drivers are feds. They're federales. They're narcs. They're a bunch of tattletales.
Absolutely.
Because who was on the horn? Hey, who was on the
It was
horn?
Maximilian.
He was like, I think Lando. I was like, I'm not even gonna try and do an impression, but basically it was
Oh,
Max telling
Max
on
called
me.
it out. Max knew, and I think Max was lined up behind Lando, right?
He was to
Left. I think.
the
Yeah.
left
So I
behind.
think
Yeah.
he was in the next row, and I was just like, oh, I was like, Max,
Hey, any advantage, right?
absolutely, absolutely. No, and like I feel the same way about that race. Like it was actually worth watching it. Given I don't know what's going on, man, and I think a lot of people have felt the same way with the production recently of these races. Production was not great. At some point, people were like, "Can we get time?" Like it was just had the places, laps, and people are like, "Where's time? Where intervals? We're
Oh
not
yeah,
getting
yeah, yeah.
anything."
But I mean, you remember? Do you remember? So when you were if you were watching the race, there was an issue with George
Oh my goodness,
Russell's
he dropped. He went
transponder.
like
So
dropped from like what all the way down to.
because dog, I'm not gonna hold you. I looked at that the thing. I was like, oh shit,
Did he
what
crash?
happened to
I was like,
George?
did he crash?
Yeah,
Engine
and it was
failure?
like you just see him keep coming down, keep coming down, keep coming down. I was like, dang. I was like, they got to show this replay of what happened. Like the car stopped or
Yeah.
he went to the. No, it's like, ladies and gentlemen, we're having issues with the transponder,
Oh my
right?
gosh.
And it was like, so like I have the timesheets
Hmm.
up on like multi viewer, and it just kept happening, just like George down, down, down. And after a while, I was like, okay, this guy's fine. He's in second. But you're right. The
Hmm.
production kept missing the overtakes. For example, Max Verstappen passing Pierre
Hmm.
Gasly at the finish line for P6.
Yeah, I had to watch that on the replay.
Yeah,
That's where I had to watch it.
dummies, dummies. The one thing I will say about the race start was Oscar took care of business.
Hmm.
By the way, it was never in doubt because I think Oscar you know what I like about Oscar? He's straight up just saying we have the best car. Our car
Yeah,
is the
he didn't
best.
hide it.
We have a great
Like I hate
car.
like Lando's
Yes.
trying to beat around the bush. He's like, nah, like
Well, I think it's because he doesn't like the car though.
Meanwhile, Oscar's just like, "Hey, man, this car's working out for me. I mean, this car, and like, I think we saw it. Like, I'm gonna say this: look at the ease that Lando had with passing up people in the beginning and passing up people at the end. I don't think it was that
Mm-hmm.
hard. Obviously, we can talk about like at
Mm-hmm.
the end it was different. I mean, tires, blah blah blah. But like in the
Sure.
beginning, I was just like, this guy's having no problem getting up there.
So I would say that so Oscar had a great start. I don't feel like, to be completely honest, Ferrari's pace wasn't one.
Hmm.
Like I was more worried if George had started behind Oscar. That to me would have been more concerning. I still
Mm.
think Oscar would have taken care of business
Yeah.
eventually, right? Um, but I was never concerned about like Oscar getting passed by Charles Leclerc, just because again the Ferrari, like the pace of it wasn't like super great. They brought upgrades, by the way,
Mhm.
which were apparently the upgrades worked a
I
little
saw
bit,
that,
baby
yeah, because
steps.
I looked at the upgrade sheet beforehand, and I was
Mm-hmm.
like, all right, this weekend we're bringing
New
the
floor.
upgrade. I was
Yeah.
like, okay, but like you can, I think you told me Charles isn't going to keep that spot. He's not going to keep that position, and it was pretty much what like first corner already, the first turn.
Yeah, because George had a great start as well.
Hmm.
So George was able to pass him, and then eventually Lando was able to pass Charles
Yeah.
as well. Like now what was interesting though was that like again, great start by Oscar, great start by George, to get up into position. Great start by Lando. What was interesting is out of the top 10, it was the two Ferraris on mediums.
Hmm.
And what I was hearing was that like Ferrari was going for a one stopper, and I was like, if they're going for a one stop, how long do they expect those mediums to last? And obviously, because of safety car like that, that wasn't going to work out. But
Yeah.
like when Max went on hards, we got that sense that like the hard tires, like the compound was not good. So Ferrari was kind of like effed at that point. Uh, so anyway, so like the race was pretty good. I think one thing I want to touch on too is that like, did you get to see anything that Antonelli was doing throughout the
A little bit
race?
I did. Yeah, in the beginning, I definitely got to see his stuff,
Hey,
which is, I mean,
hey,
which was the good parts apparently.
yes, yes, that man. That kid, first of all, he needs help with maths, which is, by the way, it's funny in the UK. They say like maths,
Hmm.
quick maths. Anyways, and so like Antonelli, like I think to go back to something you were saying earlier, he is getting used to that car. He
Hmm.
is getting used to being an F1 driver. I think the race lines that Antonelli takes are very like creative.
His
I think the speed is there. I think he would have finished in the top 10 this race had Mercedes. I don't know what that strategy was. Obviously, like putting them on softs for the last 24 laps was
Mhm.
at the time I was like, what are these guys thinking? But they pitted Antonelli twice
And you're like,
and just like messed up his
and I
entire
think
race.
like when
Like
when
that was
that
a wrap.
second pit happened, I was like, he's not recovering. Like obviously, we always
No.
know like we're like, all right, you got your pit. Let's see like where are they gonna get the pit when they pit him? Where are they gonna do it? Are they gonna
Mm-hmm.
try to undercut
Mm-hmm.
anyone? What are they gonna try to do?
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, when they did the second time, I think you kind of knew like he wasn't gonna recover. And I think his
No.
instinct is the one thing. So this is gonna sound dumb, but
Mm-hmm.
bear with me. Do you remember last season? Bear with when I tell you bear with me. You gotta hear me out. You
Hey,
gotta hear
dog,
my lyrics and
I'm
feel my
listening.
spirit.
Hey.
When Colapinko
Wait.
when Colapinko first came in, some of the moves he was
Okay,
doing
Colapinto,
for
yeah.
like the Antonelli's doing some moves, but he's being smart with his instinct because Colapinko eventually just got reckless with the car. We all know that what happened, but I think Antonelli, he's figuring out like his instinct and like you. I'm great you brought up like the creative racing line because
Mm,
he has one of the better race instincts that I've seen in a while in a rookie. Like to find those gaps, to
yeah.
find like where can I make my move here. And this is a guy like you mentioned, like he's still getting used to the car. Because I remember, do you remember
Mm,
like still remember like last year when they brought him in for I think it was like a FP1, they brought him in and he like spun out
yes.
and people were like,
He crashed that
yeah,
car, but frankly, that was Toto's fault.
yeah,
Cause how are you gonna? They put him out for some glory runs and said take some softs,
yeah.
go do rumble, young man rumble.
And then
So
like
I
and
put that on the
everyone's like, you
team.
see, he's not ready, but I'm like, I'm glad he's been
No,
showing out. It's just like you're right.
so
Mercedes strategy is the one thing. Like Mercedes kind of was like, you know what? Good luck, kid.
I think that what I would have to say is that Mercedes obviously I'm assuming they saw that their tire degradation
Hmm.
was good enough, which their cars by the way have always been really great on the tire deg. And they probably felt like with the temperature in our tire deck, we can do that. What I don't understand is like the second pit. Now, you're talking about Antonelli. I've mentioned this a lot of times, but go back to so last season in F2, Spa, Antonelli had a pass on
Oh,
Colapinto in the
I know what you're talking
rain.
about. I saw that
Yeah, that was nuts. Cause that is a blind
because he
corner
did
on
not
a
and
hill.
he could not see. That was pure
No.
instinct right there.
Yeah, and so that's how I was like, okay, this kid's gonna be all right. So yeah, but no, but I would say like the future is bright for him. Continues to be him and Hadger continue to be my favorite
Hmm.
rookies. Honorable mention to Oliver
Hmm.
Bearman, obviously. But yeah, all right. So let's talk about Red Bull. We mentioned Yuki. Max, would you say Max had a
It was a
not so great
Not
race.
so great race.
Whatever race. I mean, he still scored points,
Yeah, like
right?
he's still in there.
P6.
I mean, I think he's currently, is he P3 in the standings?
Hey, I got you. Keep
Because I
talking.
was looking at it, because for Max, I think starting at qualifying, he was talking about, he was like, hey, like my brakes, and I know like we know Red Bull, without
Yeah.
having to take any type of penalty, we're able to like switch up those brakes.
Mm-hmm.
And then
So yeah, Max is P3 right now. He's
okay,
he's got 69
yeah.
points, and Russell's behind him.
Mhm.
He's behind on 6.
And I think like Max was frustrated. I think like the epitome of the like evening for Max was that pit stop where I think what were they struggling with? Was it the front
It
right?
was yeah, no, so like the LEDs.
Hmm.
So it was kind of weird, right? Like you see in the pit stops, they have like essentially like a mini like lights, and when the lights turn
Hmm.
green, your pit's done,
Go.
you're
Yep.
going. But those things did not change,
Hmm.
and so they stayed there an extra 1, 2, maybe 3 seconds, because when it's red, they don't go. And so like somebody on the radio had to tell them, no, you got to go, something's going on with it. The same thing happened to Yuki.
Hmm.
And I guess the only reason like I'm bringing up Max because like it's very funny to me that last week it was, and rightfully so, Max is the greatest. Max is he is the best driver on the grid right now. And doing all of this, all these accolades, and saying it's Max, it's Max,
Hmm.
it's Max, it's Max. Uh, and then this week, suddenly, no, the car is terrible. The car is trash. The car is blah, 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 blah. There's people saying that, obviously, and they've been saying for a while that, like, Max, like, especially after this race, like, he's gone. Again, this is still just 4
We're
races in.
we could you and I could be talking, having recording a podcast in December, crowning Max 5-time champion for all we know.
It, honestly, unless Oscar, to me, you're right. And unless Oscar takes over and continues to
Hmm.
win, 100%,
Like
it's going to be either a sneaky Max Verstappen fifth championship or a sneaky George Russell, I was just hanging around waiting for y'all to make a mistake
But yeah, like I
championship.
think like here's the thing. Like you and I have talked about this. Max is a generational talent. He is one of
Yeah,
those
no,
guys that
yeah,
come around once every generation. I mean, it was kind of after like Lewis did his thing, Max came right there. But like in F1, we know you're essentially like, yes, there's a lot of skill involved. Not every driver is created the
sure,
same, but
sure.
you're winning or you're only as good as your car. I don't care. You can
Hmm.
take like Max and you give people are like, oh, put Max in a Sauber. He's winning, he's podium, and I'm just like, no, you guys, like, if your car is bad, you can get the maximum output of that car, but the pace is still going to be behind all these other cars who have a better vehicle, who their setup with their vehicles are much better. Like that's just a realistic thing. Like when Schumacher won his 5 in a row with Ferrari, at one point Ferrari was like 3 tenths ahead of the competition, and how they were like
Yeah,
racing, and people were like, "Oh my gosh, what in the world?" And I'm just like, "Yeah, that mattered." Or like, you remember the infamous 23 season when Max went on a
oh my
roll,
god,
the one of the most boring seasons of F1. Like that
Jesus,
was it. The
yes.
RB was that the RB19? Well,
RB19,
yeah,
like probably the most dominant
that
car.
one
Yep.
that one was ridiculous. Like, cause he was just like winning and winning because you had like you had a perfect storm. You put a car that's the best car on the grid with a guy who was at the peak of his racing, you're gonna have that. But I think for Max overall it's a disappointing weekend. Like I think for him, probably like honestly like top four. He probably wants to finish top
Mm,
four. Like for him, podium
sure.
would be like every weekend, podium or win obviously is the best, but like top four is probably like in his mind most realistic because he's like, I'm probably gonna struggle against the McLarens and George.
Yep.
Like that's how I think he's
But I
viewing it
mean,
right now.
he even came out with that quote that's saying like, I'm just a bystander in this championship. He's
Yeah.
basically paraphrasing, right? He's like, I'm not gonna
Hmm.
win the championship this year. I think he's just saying that. I don't know if
Yeah.
he honestly like believes that, but like, yeah, sure. I think what was telling, like, he was struggling with that
Hmm.
car all weekend, and like you and I are on the same page. Like that car is definitely super important to winning championships. The talent, you do have to have a driver. You can make arguments for different ones. I think um, Red Bull more or less had a recovery weekend, right? We talked about Yuki. Yuki
Hey,
finally he got to Q3, and my man got some
he
points.
got
So out
points.
of the 71 points that Red Bull has, Max has 69. Yuki has two.
Hey, That matters.
Hey, you remember that? What was that like that Kobe Bryant, Kwame Brown stat?
Kobe had
Where it was
81
like,
points. Kwame had, I think, like 2 points or something.
oh yeah, that's kind of how it was. But like, it's good. Maybe Max is finally getting
Hmm.
a team. But um, what is happening though? It is very clear that they developed a car towards the more dominant driver, and now they are essentially reaping what they're sowing.
Yeah.
Right? Like they have taken that car too far in one direction. And now it's like, okay, we got to find somebody who can drive similar styles so we can get the maximum out of both
Yeah,
cars,
which is
right?
going to be like
So,
very hard, but like I honestly feel bad for whichever driver. Like even Yuki, props on him for getting points, but I still feel bad for him because
shouts out.
any driver gets
Yeah, yeah,
who
yeah.
gets like put in that position, it's almost like some people are expecting them to come in and be like, look what Max does with this car. You have to do the same. Like that's what like as much as we hated on him last year, Checo, like when we're going back to like going what are we going back to like 21, 22, 23, especially 21, he had some good
Mm-hmm.
defensive races back in 21.
Yep.
Like absolutely, like Checo was like I don't know what happened to him last year. I honestly think it's confidence. Like we brought that up with Lewis, but I think you probably know this better than me that confidence in F1 is one of the biggest things.
Yeah, it's a killer for sure.
So
But I do think
yeah,
that car too, though. Like, I don't think Checo and his camp were absolutely nuts when they were saying like,
yeah,
"It's the car.
yeah,
I don't suck. It's the
yeah. I think
car."
everyone knew it.
Right?
Do you remember the infamous Total Wolf thing when there were all the team principals were sitting there? I'm not gonna go verbatim what he
Yeah, yeah,
said,
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
I think
Yeah.
everyone knew.
Yeah. But I mean, it's because I think what will be interesting to see is how it pans out for Red Bull this year. I think Yuki will continue to improve. We will see. Jeddah is not a tricky circuit per se, but it's not, it's a street course.
Hmm.
And so we'll see how Yuki does. It's one where Max does pretty well. It's one where Lewis does pretty well, but it's Saudi Arabia. It's another night race,
Yeah,
sure. And it's on Saturday. I think it's on Saturday
I think you might have told
too.
me it was Saturday because I know it's the first street
Yeah.
race of the year.
Yeah. And so, all right, but yeah, I guess the last thing I'll say about that is that like Max's complaints about the car were probably enough to continue to fuel the speculation
Hmm.
that like he's gone after this year, he is gone, right? And to me, that just cements more like Max is great, Max is generational. No one is gonna take that away from him, but the car is also important.
Yeah, and I honestly think like if Max leaves Red Bull, Red Bull's gonna go back to the dark ages again after Vettel left. I feel like it was.
Yeah, I think for me the question would be if Max leaves Red Bull, will they renew Yuki or will they let Yuki go, bring up Lindblad from F2 and bring in like so let's say Max goes to Mercedes, do you bring a George Russell to a
Honestly,
Red
if George
Bull?
Russell gets like second or third in the standings or even P4, I think they would strongly consider it.
Sure.
Yeah,
But I mean, what can George Russell do in a car that
made
is
for
geared
Max.
towards
But we'll
Max?
see though,
Yeah.
because I know 26 is a whole new ball game.
Yes, sir. All right. So moving on because we do got a lot to talk about. Ferrari, what did you think about their strategy, specifically starting on the mediums?
I always like find it interesting when I see like a team start off like this and then you see what everyone else has. I'm like bold strategy,
Yo.
Cotton, in the words of the infamous. I why did I forget the name of that movie? I know it's the dodgeball movie.
Oh, dodgeball. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. That's bold strategy,
yeah.
Cotton.
Let's see if it
Yeah,
works
yeah,
out
yeah,
for them.
yeah.
And I think Ferrari knew that they were going to struggle in the get go, like to keep up with
Sure,
McLaren or keep up with Mercedes. But they're like, we want to at
sure.
least give Charles a chance to get P3. I think what ruined their strategy though, like, do you think it was that safety car? Like not being a like if it would have been like a virtual safety car, like maybe that could have kept things better for their strategy. But
Yeah,
what do you think?
I think it was the safety car. So if you go back to the race, like Charles was saying, like let's go with Plan Delta or Plan
Oh
D.
my gosh,
Ferrari is infamous, obviously, for
them
all
and their
that. Yeah,
plans every time.
but I think the reason Charles wanted to stay on the
Mhm.
mediums as long as possible and make it a one stop was because he knew those hard tires were not good,
Yeah.
right? And I think the team had the data. They knew like Max had complained about those, like they were seeing all the tire deltas for
Hmm.
everybody, and so they knew that the hard wasn't like the best compound. They just didn't think that their car could make it on softs. And of course, like the safety car, like if you're noticing, if you're watching the race, both Lewis and Charles started to do really well
Hmm.
on the mediums and they were overtaking people. And then just when those tires were in like the best window, the safety car.
And that just, I knew that was like,
Yeah. It was nice. It was like a double overtake. While Charles was taking Lando for P3, Lewis was overtaking. Who was he overtaking? It's like Antonelli for P4,
maybe,
I think, or Gasly. It was somebody. It was
I
good.
think maybe,
I
yeah.
didn't mind. I
Hmm.
guess what I would say, going back to my question, like I didn't mind Ferrari's strategy. I thought it was like, sure,
Hmm.
why not? Let's try something different. But yeah, the safety car like definitely ruined it. Would you say that Leclerc? I can't say that guy's last name. I always end up saying Leclerc. Would you say like he had a pretty good race
I think he had a solid race. Like for him, he probably wished he could have gotten podium. But I think, I mean,
obviously
at the end, I think were they both on? They were both on hards at the end, right?
at the
And
end?
I
Yep.
was like, there's no way he's going to be able to defend. Like
No,
it was almost inevitable. Like I looked at how many laps were left with Lando being behind Leclerc and Hamilton. I was just like, it's too much time. He's gonna pass him up for sure.
sure.
And like you kind of like just knew when it would happen. Like it's not if but when because of the type of tires he was on compared to them. And I
Mm-mm-mm.
think Leclerc, I think they're. It's hard to kick yourself because you can't predict the safety car. Like I think that's the one thing. Like you
Obviously.
obviously can't do that. So I think the one thing they're kind of thinking to themselves is like we could have gotten a podium this weekend. They're like, I mean, how far off was Leclerc to Russell though? Like I don't remember like
Let's
throughout the
see.
race how far off he was.
I got you. Let's see. Let's see. Let's see. So during this race, beep, 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 I'm looking it up.
Yeah.
Uh, Charles finished 4.2, roughly 4.2 seconds behind George. He was about 3.4 seconds behind Lando. So yeah.
And I imagine when he was in
So
third, he they probably had times when he was a little bit closer. And I think in Hamilton, obviously starting off at P9,
that did not help.
that definitely
But
did not help, but he probably felt a little better. I think
hey, man, no, go ahead,
no,
go ahead,
no,
go
I'm
ahead.
saying like his quotes coming out of the race. I think those were the quotes that I was reading. Kind of saying he's like, I think I figured out the car a little bit more. It's like
Mm-hmm.
moving forward, kind of like I think that was his takeaway. And I'm just hoping we don't have, I'm worried about, Emmanuel. We don't have the
Mm.
infamous Hamilton on Mercedes with George Russell thing where Leclerc out qualifies Hamilton, but they always end up together when it comes to race time.
I was I was actually just about to mention that. Well, what was that thing? Start George Russell ahead of Lewis
Hmm.
Hamilton, and they will always end up.
Yeah,
Was like George Russell P3, uh, Lewis Hamilton P10, and they will end up P4, P5.
but like I mean, but like you said, like I think a lot of the strategy is, and a lot of this is figuring out like what does Hamilton like, what does he like, and I almost think like I don't understand sometimes like what their issue has been with like Leclerc because he's been there for a while. They should know what he likes
Mm-hmm.
and doesn't like, but it seems like they're also learning his style and I'm just like, what in the world is just happening? But it could just be that they're doing a combination. But I mean, I think Ferrari is probably like we have something to build on. And like you mentioned, if this was like second to last race of the season, they would have been like, whatever. But then since it's the fourth race, I bet you they're like, okay, we got something. But my worry is that
Mm.
we're gonna tune in to the race next week and we'll get like a P8 and a P10 finish. Like that's what my worry is right now.
Mercy. I don't. I don't think. I think next week they might surprise us,
Yeah.
but who knows? I did think Lewis had an amazing race. To
Hmm.
be completely honest, he won Driver of the Day, which people feel some type of
Oh
way.
man.
Hey, for those of you who feel some type of way, get your bread up. All right, get your people out there in the streets voting for your
Yeah.
Driver of the Day.
But like
Okay,
when people were like, I think people were like, yeah, there's like seven other guys who deserve it over him,
so why didn't you vote for
and I'm
them,
just like,
dummy?
oh, I'm like, okay.
So, but I thought first of all, it was on. Lewis had the start was a little bit messy,
Hmm.
not for him. He had a great start, but Carlos Sainz basically like almost pushed him off track.
Mm.
So okay, cool. But he had some really great overtakes. That medium, once it was in the right window, was good. I think what was interesting for me about this race with Lewis was the fact that like he post race was admitting like, hey, muscle memory, the human nature is like it's a crazy thing because you have driven a certain way for X amount of times, and now like you have to change everything about your driving style. So he was saying
Mhm.
like, for example, like the brakes, just even the brakes are different than what he's been used to for his entire career. And like he's using like engine braking for the first time. Like
Mm.
he was not using engine braking or has not been using engine braking to slow down the corners. And I think right now really it just boils down to him understanding the car and being confident with the car, right? Because what they keep telling him on the radio and with Ferrari is like you need to brake earlier
Mm.
to get a better exit out of the corner. But Lewis Hamilton is he is somebody who is known for his late braking,
Mhm.
and that's part of the reason. But anyways, I thought it was a good race. I thought overall the strategy was not super terrible. It was ambitious. The pit stops were way
Oh
better
my gosh, yeah.
than obviously like teams like Red Bull, for an example. All right. Whew, a lot to get through. Quickly, Pierre Gasly,
Hey man,
great
from
weekend for a
qualifying to
yes,
like
sir.
his race finish, I was just like,
Yes.
he kept
They
himself.
said, hey, Alpine said, turn that engine up. It doesn't matter. It blows up, doesn't matter. Turn that engine.
Hey man, in the words of was it dude from Rocky Four, if he dies, he dies, type of thing. Like they were just like, hey man, if that car dies, it dies.
Hey, turn it
Yeah.
up. So I thought, no, I thought Gasly had a great weekend. His qualifying
Hmm.
P5 was amazing. Jack Doohan did not score. Uh, Jack Doohan, watch. Hey, you think Jack Doohan is gonna make it past Miami? You think Jack Doohan is gonna make it to
I
Miami?
hope so. I'm just sometimes I root for these rookies because some of these teams are just like,
Cutthroat.
and like I hope like Alpine probably like we had Esteban Ocon and he did his share of like holding his weight, but I'm like yeah he's also been there for a few years and been in
For a
racing
minute.
for a minute. Like I think it really does matter. Like there's rare amount of rookies who come in and be like bam bam boop I know what I'm doing. So
Boop, bop, beep,
I'm
bop,
just
bop.
worried man about
Uh,
Duhan at this point. Duhan.
So I will say, I mean, yeah, Doohan is after Suzuka, he definitely had to have a good race.
Hmm.
The Alpine obviously was capable of doing stuff. I'm super annoyed. Obviously, I did see it, but I'm super annoyed that they didn't show the final Max Verstappen
Because
overtake at the line. Not overtake, but just like he got
Max ended up
that
P6.
win.
Yeah, Max passed him right at the
hmm
end.
And so Doohan, I don't know, man. We will see what happens.
Hmm.
All right. But yeah, by the way, those are Alpine's first points for the year.
Hey, what a race! And he ended up. Hey, in my head, I was just like he ended up like he was like Paul Rudd on the hot things where he looked back at Ocon right behind him. It's like, hey, look at us.
Look at
Who would have
us.
thought? I was just like those two inseparable.
Oh no! All right, but I mean, we'll see what happens next week. With doing, I
Hmm.
think he has probably coming to an inflection point with that team if it's not already there, because he's essentially wrecked that car
Is
twice,
he
once in the race and once in a free
is
practice.
he what I think he's one of two rookies who haven't scored points this season.
Yeah, Bortoleto has not
Yeah.
scored, and yeah, Duon has not scored. Has Liam Lawson? Yeah, Liam Lawson
Well, Liam
scored
Lawson's not a
points
rookie
last
though,
week.
right? Or
They count him as a
really?
rookie. I don't, but they count him as a yeah. I
Because
don't recall
Lawson hasn't
this. It's
scored.
weird. Okay, so then Lawson, Bortoleto, and Duon haven't
Yeah.
scored, but Antonelli, Hadjar, and Bearman
Yeah.
have scored. What I would have expected more out of Lawson,
Hmm.
and while we're on the topic of him, like Liam Lawson has more super license points than actual race points. This race, he got a couple for the driving styles. He ran into some people.
Hmm.
He pushed some people off track.
He is
Yeah,
getting racking up those points.
I think he got like 45 seconds worth of
Woo.
penalties at the end. Like at the end, he got like 45, and he got like
Hey
I think
man,
4 or
he was he
5
was
super
he was
license
channeling
points.
the ghost of Kevin Magnuson.
Not even K Mag, dog. Not even K Mag. All right, just bring back Daniel. At this rate, bring back Daniel Ricciardo. All right, just bring back Daniel. Bring back Checo in the RB at this point.
Why
And
not?
so, like, I guess my question for you: do you think Liam Lawson finishes the year?
I think. I mean, I think they're probably the RBs are going to be like because there has to be a point because if Hodger like does better than him for most of the season,
Mm-hmm.
they're probably. But they
Mm-hmm.
can't keep switching. I think Red Bull they gotta stop, man. They need to be stopped at some point.
I mean, eventually, yes,
They can't.
but I feel like so for me, I don't think that Lawson's gonna get kicked
Mhm.
out again. I think if he continues at this rate, I don't think he's gonna get renewed. I think if anything, let's say Max stays next year,
They're thinking
right?
about that second seat. This is like a trial. Like who's gonna get that second seat?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I don't know, and if Helmut Marko is the one who's evaluating the talent, and Christian Horner is the one who is evaluating the talent, I'm just wondering at what point like they're going to be in the hot seat for the driver decisions that they're making.
Hmm.
So just leave it there. So yeah, Lawson, not a great race. My nephew Isaac had a decent
Ah,
weekend. The
man.
race, he was on my fantasy team, and I put it like so. My fantasy league is like grid rivals, and I
Yeah.
put like a star, so it's like double points. And I was like, this kid's gonna do it. Yeah, man, he didn't even get there.
Disappointed. Disappointment.
But we ride. Hey, but we ride. That's another one. VCarve is P2 and Aura championships for
Hey
2025,
man,
by the way. Their videos are
we'll
hilarious.
take it.
Yes. Did have a great weekend was Haas.
Haas,
Um,
double points.
so obviously Ocon had that terrible incident in Q2
Hmm.
yesterday. So that was pretty terrible. But
He
man,
bounced back.
how about that? How about that kid? How about Oliver
Oh man,
Bearman? Yes,
P20.
sir.
And we're
Talk
moving
about it.
on up
Speak
to a
on it.
deluxe apartment in the sky. I'm talking about what like he was my choice for driver of the day. I'm admit it. I know I'm a Lewis Hamilton apologist, but that was my choice.
Hey man, no shame in that. I thought it was interesting. Like after the race, everybody was like on the radio. At one point, like I think his dad was on there. I was like, "What is this? A party line?" And you could hear in his voice, "Is like, thanks, Dad." Like, bro, what are you
He's just
doing,
like
dog? Like, why?
he was confused as anyone.
And
Everyone else was confused.
so I thought no, but I thought Haas is a team that actually has been doing really great under Ayu Komatsu. Like, shouts out to him
They've been so
because I
much better
thought
this season.
personally, nothing against Gunther Steiner, but like they had him way longer than they should
Hmm.
have. And I'm super happy that Ayo Komatsu is showing like, hey, this team actually is capable of more than what it's been doing the last couple of because it's crazy because last year was the first year that Haas was in the black.
Mm.
They made a profit last. That was the first time in their
Mm.
team history that they made it, which is crazy. For me, I'm like, why did they stick with Gunther Steiner for that long? But doesn't matter, different conversation.
Hmm.
So amazing weekend by Haas. They're P5, by the way, in
They're
the
there.
championship.
Ferrari better watch out,
I'm
man.
like, hey man, listen, right? Like Haas Ferrari, by the way, because it's a Ferrari engine in the Haas. They have 20 points. Ferrari's got 57 G's. Um, and Williams is 1 point behind Haas right now. And the bulk of Williams' points,
One.
Alex Albon. Hey man, again, I made this apology last week. I'm gonna make this again. Apologies to Alex Albon. I thought once again, I thought Carlos Sainz was gonna
Mm-mm.
baptize that man. I thought he was
Yeah.
gonna dunk
I
on him.
apologize, Alex Albon. I was not familiar with your game, sir.
I was not either. Dang. I'm glad. Oh man. Albon, all those accolades did not score any points this race.
But I mean, I
And
kind of felt like that Williams car was just.
but you gotta remember that that's that Williams car that was doing really good during testing.
Weren't
And
they the
man, I know
best
things
test
have
like
changed.
at this track? They were the best preseason tester too, right?
One of
I,
there
I
was
thought they were
some
one.
that and that's at one point yes, but again, it's testing. Those times rarely mean nothing because
Absolutely.
at one point it just fueled my Carlos Sainz is gonna baptize Alex Albon fire because he was like doing so good, blah 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 blah. But Alex Albon, it's not even quietly. He scored 18 of the 19 points for
He's
Haas,
doing his thing.
or not for Haas, for
He's
Williams.
doing his thing. And
So,
you already talked about how Science got his
and
1 point.
once again, If you missed it earlier, I'll say this again. I'm not worried about Carlos Sainz because Carlos Sainz got the same, got his first point with Williams the same way Logan Sargent got his points with Williams. Double DSQ by Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton. All right. So I'm not worried about what's going on with Carlos Sainz. Carlos Sainz is to worry about what's going on with that car. Okay. Carlos Sainz is to worry about getting adjusted to. And by the way, so that's another thing. Like people give all this grace to Carlos Sainz because he's getting
Mm-hmm.
acclimated. They give all this grace to Esteban Ocon because he's getting acclimated. Yeah, I'm making this about Lewis again. Why aren't they extending
I
him the
mean,
same
I will say
grace?
this: as far as Lewis, when you are a seven-time champion, I think people do expect greatness no matter where you step in. I think that
He's
that's one
not
thing.
God.
I mean that's just for me. That's how I feel.
Hey, I'm gonna take it all the way back. They're treating Lewis Hamilton like Matt and Greg Jennings right now.
Wow, put the team on his back
Put the team on his
against the New
back,
Orleans Saints. Here comes the hardest hitting safety in the league, Darren
dog.
Sharper.
It was, and I feel like Lewis was hot too because after that race, Ferrari had him doing a solo interview, and they do that. They do that with all their drivers, so it's like
Hmm.
nothing new. But Lewis is like, oh man, I really gotta do this. I gotta talk. Grazie a tutti. I'm like, it's all right, dog. Hey, we right. Hey, he was on Lewis Hamilton, by the way, this weekend was on his Easy E NWA flow. You saw the
Yeah, he
curl,
had the curls out.
dog. All I needed somebody to like little Jerry curl action right there.
Hmm.
I was like, yes. And you can tell they don't see a lot of black people in the paddock because they had like, man, I don't know how many articles about Lewis Hamilton with the curls. Lewis
Oh
Hamilton.
my
I'm like,
goodness.
he just let his braids
Yep.
out, bro. It's gotta let that scalp
Gotta let it breathe.
a
I mean,
little
that
bit, right?
brother. Sometimes I think he puts it on too tight. Sometimes I miss like Lewis. Put on some looser braids, some dreads, man.
Hey,
Like,
I think first of all, I don't know. I don't, anybody who watching this is from Europe. I don't know how the braiders are in Europe, but I feel like that's too tight. My man needs
I
to
mean,
get a braider on staff from Atlanta, Georgia, or Chicago,
obviously,
Illinois
like
to just
I'm not a connoisseur of the follicles because I'm not follically blessed anymore. Then when I had braids, let me tell you, the one thing I learned was don't put those bad boys on too tight, and
can't push
especially
your
when you got
hairline back.
that hairline receding back. And we know, I mean, Lewis, we seen it the way it is, but like when I see his scalp with the braids, I'm like, those bad boys are just
That's that's
reeling
what
that
I'm
scalp
saying.
back.
And again, everybody, the reason we're talking about this is because they talked about this. So, anyways, it was very interesting. I think Lewis, it was not a forgettable weekend for Lewis,
Mhm,
but it was definitely a situation where it was like, come on, man, y'all got to stop asking him the same questions. Y'all got to stop putting him in these positions. And you know what? Whatever. If you're gonna hold Lewis
mhm.
Hamilton to a higher standard, I think that's a bunch of BS, right? Then whatever. If you're gonna do that, then you must also concede the fact that he is the greatest. Full stop.
All right,
So,
brother.
all right, man. Uh, Top it off by saying it was overall a great race. Super pumped that Oscar won. Interesting to see how that's going to unfold next weekend because it's the last of the triple header before we go to Miami.
Hmm.
Um, as always, and as customs, whenever I have guests on, we talk about our matatans and our pariguayos. And so, for the Bahrain Grand Prix, let's start off with the vegetables first. Who's your pariguayo of this race?
I honestly think it was Signs. I think Signs with my
Ooh,
Barriguayo. I mean, all this stuff we know about him qualifying ahead of Lewis. I thought he was super aggressive. Like, kind of, he had his elbows out, as they say. And eventually we saw at the end. What was it, like 10 laps ago that he had his incident?
lap
Yeah.
47 was when he was retired. Yeah, so
And
10
that's where I
laps.
was
Yeah,
like, it's like, man. And like once again, like I don't think that this season has not been ideal for him. I know he's learning Williams, and we should be
sure.
giving him grace to learn the car. But as we know, the way F1 works, sometimes you don't get that grace.
Hey, it's not a finishing school. Sorry. Um. Okay. My matatan quick or pariguayo is Liam Lawson
Mm,
because brother, what are you doing out there, man? You gotta keep that car on
yeah,
track and
absolutely.
out of people's gearboxes. Hey, you're not here to make friends. I hear you, dog. But I hope you're also not here to cause a ruckus either. All right, Wreck It Ralph. You love cars, but maybe your favorite movie is Wreck-It Ralph. That's a terrible joke. I'm
Ooh,
sorry. Who is your
I
Matatan for
got two
this race?
peeps. I'm gonna give
All right,
a shout out to one Oliver Bearman from Haas.
absolutely. Yes.
He was my
Great recovery
any
job.
type of
Yes.
driver moves up that many positions, especially starting
Yes.
in P20.
Yes.
Got to give props. And I'm going to give props to George Russell for this race. I think his weekend, you probably talked about like outside of Oscar. I mean, Oscar for me, I'm sorry, Oscar, for not giving you my marathon of the weekend, but I think Russell,
Fair.
just him being able what he could do, getting sandwiched in between the McLarens, had a great qualifying. I think he had a good race. Those are my two.
All right. Man, I don't know. I think my Matatan low key. My Matatan is gonna go to Yuki
Hey
Tsunoda
yo,
for just like the overall weekend,
right.
right? Obviously, like Lewis Hamilton, he's greatness.
Hmm.
I expect that from him. I'm so happy he got the driver of the day. When I take the whole weekend into it, I'm happy to see Yuki succeeding, even if it is for Red
Hmm.
Bull. Got into Q3, which shouldn't be a huge deal, but shouts out to him. Got those two little tiny baby points for the
We'll take
team.
those. We'll
So
take those.
Marathon, yeah, we do take those. All right. It's not gonna help, but hey, Yuki Tsunoda, right? He deserves a seat. If anybody deserves a seat, it's Yuki. All right. All right, man. That's it. Any final thoughts on the race before we let you go?
Nah, that's it, baby.
All right. Well, as always, don't forget comment, like, subscribe. All of that is free. Share, follow, tell your mamis, papis, tios, abuelas, your freaking vecinos. That's your neighbors. If you don't know what that means, for the Monoplaza F1 podcast, that was Elkyn, and this is Emi Bertre. Peace.